The width of an iron butterfly is measured between this center strike where the shared short options are and the long options, which are equidistant on either side of those shared short options. So how do we set the width of your iron butterfly? The iron butterfly width is measured between those shared short strike prices and the equidistant wings, as we've said before. So visually, this is what they're going to look like, something like this. And so we're going to measure this width is really the distance between, again, that long strike and that shared short option, which is going to be placed right at the money. So in other words, if we set this short option up at, let's say, 3,400, and our long options are down here at 3,350, and if we have the other long option up here at 3,450, then we can say that this iron butterfly is 50 points wide. The distance of each spread is 50 points, and they need to be equidistant. The wider the wings, the more credit that you receive, and the faster that time decay works in your favor. So there's a tendency to go as wide as you possibly can. Well, the problem with that, though, is that a wider iron fly risks a lot more. So we want to find the right level to set these iron flies. Well, I set the iron fly width based on two things. First of all, my availability. So this is my availability to be able to manage the trade live. If I can't be there to manage the trade live, I will set it up a different manner, which I'll show you. And then secondly, the daily expected move is another way that we can set these wings, the width of the wings. First of all, let's talk about the situation where I might have limited availability during the day. So in other words, maybe I can set up the trade right on time. However, I can't be there all morning to manage the trade. Maybe as soon as I set up the trade, I've got to jump in my car and go over to another meeting or an appointment, or I have an errand to take, and I just can't manage the trade. Well, then I need to set up the trade with risk management in mind, yes? So in that case, I'm going to use a smaller spread. And typically for the S&P 500, I'll set up an iron butterfly with about a $10 wide spread. So if our center strike price here in this case is $33.95, let's go ahead and set up that trade. We'll drop it into the analyzer and take a look at this. So we're going to set this up as an Iron Condor, and we're going to set the, of course, the center strike at $33.95 in both cases, and then I'm going to go out 10 points. So 10 points from there would be $34.05, or 10 points below that is going to be $33.85. Now, I'm not going to receive as much of a credit with those kind of constricted long strikes. Narrow spreads are going to mean a smaller credit. Let's take a look in the analyzer and see what this one looks like. Okay, the characteristics of this is going to be a very tall, very narrow iron butterfly. But what I want you to notice about this is that the risk in each case, whether or not the price takes off to the downside or starts to rally like crazy, the risk is very limited of this trade. Now, you have a relatively small profitable range, but if you've done a good job of identifying the range day, then the price should sit there within that small range, and maybe this range is going to be defined by the width of the strikes in your opening range. Now, don't be fooled by the extreme narrowness of the trade, because actually what you're interested in is this pink line here, the one that's gently sloping. Notice how flat that it is. So the point here is that you can see the price go well outside of the envelope of this trade, and it's not going to generate a whole lot of loss, at least not initially, not till expiration. And even then, the loss is still very well contained. So this is a very slow moving, very easy to manage style of iron butterfly, the very narrow one like this. And again, the only time that I will use this if my time availability is constricted during the morning, if I have to go to a dentist appointment or something like that, where I still think that there's a great opportunity to set up a trade for the day. I just can't be there to manage it. Now, the first thing I will do is, and we'll get into this, is set up a limit order to get me out at my profit target, which is going to be up in this area, right? So I will do that, but I'm not going to worry about any kind of a stop for this type of trade because the risk is really limited to this. So it's a very flat, this is a trade-off. And I will only use this when my availability is limited in the morning. Okay, so let's go to the normal way of setting up an iron butterfly. Typically what I will do, and again, let's pretend that this is a 0-day option. This is 2 days to go. Let's pretend this is a 0 day. The first thing I'm going to do is look at my expected move, which is over here in the right-hand corner, whether it's in Tastyworks or Thinkorswim, or if I don't have one of those, I'm going to calculate the expected move based on the at-the-money straddle. So hopefully you've got one of the better platforms that has the expected move set on it. What I want to do is I want to set the wings to fit outside of this expected move. So if I have a morning expected move for the day of plus minus 25 points, then I want to use the next multiple of 10 outside of that. So in this case, I want to use plus minus 30-point wide wings. Plus minus 30-point wings. If I had an expected move here of 22 points, I would still use plus minus 30-point wings. If I had a plus minus 15-point expected move, then I would use plus minus 20-point wings. So the fact that I have plus minus 25 means that I should set up my iron butterfly with plus minus 30-point wings. So let's go down to set that up. And actually, I've already got that trade in place. We've got the 33.95 center strike, and then plus minus 30 from that is going to be 33.65 on the put side and 34.25 on the call side. So let's take a look at this one again. And this is the one that we looked at before. So these wings are plus minus 30 points. You can see them out here. This is really where the profit and loss diagram has a knee there. So this is going to be between the center strike right there and this upper level. This is going to be a 30-point. And we're going to have the same equidistant down here at 30 points. So this is typically how I will set these, is to set the spread width to accommodate the expected move for the day. Now notice that you have a lot more room to work with. You got a lot more credit that came in on the trade, but the risk is much higher on the trade. So this is not one where I want to just let it go. And that's why we went with the narrow iron butterfly if we couldn't be there for that. So this one definitely needs to be attended to. You definitely need to risk manage that, and we'll show you that in the next video. So those are the two methods that I use to set the width of the iron butterfly.